Good morning. Today I'm going to talk about something a little bit different than I normally would on my YouTube channel, and I'm not sure if this will ever get published or not, but it's something that I like to talk about and I know that should be spoken about, but sometimes I just find it a little bit difficult. If you follow my blog, then you'll know that I write about it quite a lot. I find it easy to write about and something good to write about. And it's something that we should be spreading the message. If you don't follow my blog, then you probably won't know, unless you follow my Instagram. But Daisy was born without a right hand. It's not that I don't like talking about it. I think now it's quite relatively easy to talk about, and it's something that I like to talk about quite a bit. It's just sometimes when I think back to when we first found out that I found it really difficult. Obviously when you're pregnant and you find out this information, then it's a bit of a shock and it's not what you are expecting. But yeah, I've also got my Bounty, good old supplies to get me through this, so yeah, let's get going. So in terms of my pregnancy, I actually had quite a smooth pregnancy. I was very sick. And again, if you know my background, you'll know I suffered from HG. But I managed to get it controlled with some help, and so it wasn't so bad. Well, it wasn't nice, but it wasn't so bad. But other than that, I had not really any issues. 12-week scan was really exciting, all good, growing well, nothing out of the ordinary seen, all good. Got really excited. Then it was my husband's birthday, so I thought, I'll be 16 weeks pregnant then, I'll book a private scan and we'll find out the gender. So off we tootled. When we got there, it was all good, all excited, placing bets, boy or girl, etc. And we went into the room and we had our scan. All well, she says it's a little girl, and we could see her moving around and blowing bubbles and, you know, all the rest of it, really active. And then it went really quiet, and the obstetrician, or whatever she was, I can't remember what their title is, radiographer, don't know, she leant over and held my hand. That's when I knew really something wasn't right, something was gonna happen. But what she said is that she had an obligation to tell me that something wasn't right, that I'd signed a contract to say that if she'd seen something that she was obliged to tell us, which I completely understand, that's absolutely fine, but you just don't expect it to actually happen. Anyway, she said that she couldn't see a right hand, she actually couldn't see anything really. She saw a little arm, but she didn't know how far it went. Was it a full arm, was it not a full arm, was there a hand, was there not a hand? She couldn't see. Yeah, so anyway, she told us, and I just felt physically sick. I just had to run onto the bathroom, and I just sat there on the bathroom floor for, well, it felt like hours, but it was probably a few minutes, and Ben was there as well. And I guess our wheels just came crashing down, and the next minutes, hours and days were just impossible really, because you just think the worst, there must be something else underlying. Why would she not have a hand? She's never going to be able to ride a bike, she's never going to be able to plait her hair, she's never going to be doing this, that and the other, which now is ridiculous. Of course she's going to ride a bike, why wouldn't she? Yes, we may need to do a few little tweaks with her bike, and she might need a little more help in learning how to do it, but actually knowing Daisy now, she'll be riding her bike before we have a chance to show her it, so I have no concerns whatsoever. But at the time it was horrendous. They transferred us to the hospital, which luckily we only waited I think it was a day or so. It's a bit of a blur really to see the obstetrician. We saw him and he was brilliant. We saw him then throughout the whole of my pregnancy. He saw different things, so one time he might see that she had some small little digits on the end of her hand, other times no. Sometimes there'd be metacarpals, which are bones in your hands that go up to your fingers, other times no. But the main idea of his was to make sure she was growing otherwise, so all her organ functions, her brain, her heart, her kidneys, etc. were all perfect. Everything else, everything was growing in proportion, because if her arm hadn't been growing properly itself, or the other arm hadn't been growing, or her legs, then there could have been something else underlying, but there was no issues. Or her legs, then there could have been something else underlying, but there was no issues. She was growing beautifully. Seeing her so often really helped me come to terms with it, and I think also my husband. So by the time she actually arrived, although I was really anxious, really excited to see her, but really anxious of what my reaction would be and how her hand would actually look, because although we'd seen on the scan, it was really difficult to tell depending on her position, what she was doing, and obviously in the flesh it's completely different. I'll insert a few photos here for you to see her, and she's brilliant. You would never know there was anything different about her. She doesn't let it stop her doing anything. She uses both hands to eat. Crawling was no issue at all. It's just going to be things like shoelaces. Anyway, that was about it really. Adjusting to it was difficult, the hardest thing I've ever gone through. But we've since seen lots of consultants and things, so I'm happy to do a follow-up video about how she's getting on, how she has to adapt to everyday life, because although I say she's no different, she does have to do things slightly different sometimes, and people are always interested to see how does she do these things. I should say, they do not know the reason why it happened. They will never be able to tell us. What they do know, it was not amniotic band syndrome, which if you're not sure about what that is, basically the muscles and the bands in your uterus can sometimes be too tight and then they can self-amputate the baby's limbs. This isn't the case with Daisy because it isn't a clean cut. She has tiny little nubbins and she has a thumb. So it's almost like a really tiny little hand, so it's not a clean cut. So it is just something that stopped the growth of her hand while she was in utero. And it was probably about 4 to 5 weeks after she was conceived, so really early days. Nothing, I can hand on heart say that nothing I did. I didn't drink because she was very much planned for. No drugs, nothing terrible at all. So sadly it was one of those things. But yeah, I thought I'd share our story, and I'm happy to continue doing so because it might just help somebody. Okay, thank you. Bye.